ONDO Finance is the biggest RWA play you can make in 2025. Just a few weeks ago, they held their ONDO Summit, where they announced the ONDO chain. And for the last few weeks, we have been watching them give teasers and tidbits of what this new global market would look like. Launching on February 4th to everybody but the United States, this new platform is bringing all of your traditional finance on-chain with ONDO Global Markets. This is where markets are able to operate 365, 24/7, and institutions will be able to take their real-world assets and earn yield off that. In fact, they'll even be able to participate in validators on a permission network through ONDO chain, eliminating all of the hurdles your TradFi would have when entering the crypto market. Now, there's been a lot of questions on what does this mean for the ONDO token itself. So I figured we would watch together their chief strategy officer breaking down the new ONDO chain and what it means for ONDO and its future.
A piece of transformational and foundational infrastructure that is really designed to bring all of you, and I'm really looking at the biggest institutions in this room, on-chain. Now, why are we developing another blockchain? There's quite a few of them out there already. We are intimately familiar with that. So it's a great question to ask. Well, when we set out to build the ONDO GM platform, we really set out to build something that could combine the best of both traditional finance with its incredible deep liquidity and investor protections with all the benefits of DeFi, with its open access and innovation and new primitives. However, as we set out on this mission, we realized that the necessary conditions to really bring these two worlds together really did not exist. The infrastructure to bring these two together really was not present. We ran into a variety of issues, many of which I think will sound pretty familiar to the people in this room. First and foremost, securities don't really work that well with DeFi. DeFi was not designed with securities in mind, right? Stuff like stock splits or even dividend payouts. The smart contract accounting really cannot handle those issues very well. We had experienced this with our own assets, OUSG and USDY, but as we were thinking about scaling our own footprint to literally thousands of assets, we realized that the status quo just couldn't work, right? We needed a new ecosystem focused on RWAs. More on that later. Second, cross-chain asset management and managing the liquidity between all of those different blockchains, it's quite challenging. At this point, it's pretty clear that the future of crypto will be omni-chain. But issuing your assets on each chain in a compliant way and managing the liquidity between these various blockchains, that takes quite a lot of time. OUSG and USDY are live on 10 different chains. We have a full team of blockchain developers and ops people that manage that around the clock. Again, when you're thinking about scaling to literally thousands of assets, it just doesn't work. Third, and this one does not receive nearly as much attention as I personally think it should. Inadequate security and cost. Running your network security and other critical components, even like oracles, powered by a cryptocurrency token that is incredibly volatile. That's actually a pretty expensive way of doing things and not necessarily the best security robustness that you want. This may be fine when you're dealing with cryptocurrencies on chain that are in and of itself incredibly volatile. But when you're thinking about scaling literally tens of billions of real world assets on chain, that's not the best security model. Institutional grade on-chain capital markets really do require a more stable and robust security model. And last but not least, the lack of institutional participation. I'm sure that one sounds very familiar to a lot of the people in this room. And there's very good reasons for that, right? Typically related to regulatory and compliance reasons. But it does make that there currently is not a very tight coupling between on-chain and off-chain environments.
And I want to remind you guys, he is directly speaking to BlackRock, BNY Mellon, Fidelity, CFTC commissioners. He is speaking to the institutions on February 4th here. So when he goes down the exact issues that ONDO is solving, he's not only already pitching this to the institutions directly in this speech, but he's actually already working with. ONDO Chain is actually already working with many of the institutions watching this presentation here. So very important to understand that the solutions he's talking about are already in use.
Imagine the ONDO GM experience that could be if you actually had a broker-dealer powering the on-chain economy and being able to participate in the on-chain economy. When an investor would like to purchase a security, they would simply declare their intent on-chain. A broker-dealer would pick up on that intent, go and acquire that security in one of the traditional exchange venues with incredible deep liquidity, mint the asset on-chain, but probably not stop there. On an ongoing basis, this broker-dealer would publish the asset prices on-chain, just like they do in traditional finance, and post a proof of reserves on-chain. They could do all of that significantly cheaper than what exists today and with better investor protections. So we ultimately realized that that really is the ONDO GM experience that we want and that our investors deserve. But it clearly requires institutions to come on-chain and create a much more tighter coupling between on-chain and off-chain environments. As such, we realized that in order to build ONDO GM in the way that we want, and in the way that investors deserve, and in a way that scales, most importantly, we needed to create an environment that institutions can actually run, and with it, create the underlying infrastructure that so many in this room have been waiting for all the years that I have known you. Enter the ONDO chain, a fundamental rethink of how institutions can participate on-chain and how RWAs can be scaled on-chain. The ONDO chain combines the best of public permissionless blockchains with private permissions chains while addressing the issues that I mentioned previously. Some of the core features that it will have are, number one, real-world assets as a gas token, and staking collateral. This one's a big one. This means that the ONDO chain will enable the staking of high-quality liquid assets, real-world assets, and a little bit of crypto, but mostly real-world assets. The network will be proof of stake, but powered by real-world assets. This means that the network security of the ONDO chain will be much less volatile than other crypto networks, and the associated cost to run the chain will be significantly less. This also means that you as an institution can participate and run a node just with the assets that you're already holding on balance sheet. But this way, you may be even to earn additional yield on them. This also means that you as an institution can actually run a node without ever having to touch crypto. I'm sure that will make some people in your compliance and accounting department extraordinarily happy. Finally, gas fees are going to be paid with real-world assets as well, ultimately just providing for a better user experience and investor experience. Secondly, the ONDO chain will be run by a permission validator set. This means that only known and reputable and often regulated institutions will be allowed to run a validator. This also means that when you as an investor come on chain, you can rest assured that your transactions are not going to be front run and you can enjoy similar protections like you do in traditional finance. And last but not least, vote extensions. The validator set of the ONDO chain is not just going to validate transactions. They are also going to do other critical functions like publish the prices of an asset on-chain, verify the collateral that is backing on-chain securities on an ongoing basis, and sign off on bridging transactions whenever they're requested. By designing the ONDO chain this way, we enable it to do, or we achieve, a few things. First and foremost, it can support a much more cost-effective and scalable investor experience for real-world assets on-chain. The ONDO chain effectively eliminates the need to pay for and assume security risk of different providers of chain security, Oracle security, asset security, and bridging security. The ONDO validator set will take all of this on. And fundamentally, when you think about it, when you're dealing with a real-world asset, as opposed to a cryptocurrency, your underlying trust assumptions are already incredibly different. The ONDO chain just builds on these different trust assumptions and aggregates a lot of those critical functions that you find on the blockchain all into the ONDO validator set. By doing this, it allows RWAs to come on-chain in a much more scalable and cost-effective manner. We can also support critical actions like the minting of an asset on-chain when the security has been purchased off-chain with significantly lower latency. Second, the ONDO chain enables RWAs to be truly omni-chain for the first time. It will be the first blockchain to connect both into public blockchains as well as traditional TradFi environments. As a result, the ONDO chain is really built to be a distribution hub. You can issue your asset on the ONDO chain, connect it into your TradFi environment to service it, bridge it to any other public blockchain that you want, while still managing your assets across all the chains from one spot. Developers, similarly, will be able to build their applications on the ONDO chain and seamlessly connect into other public blockchain networks, but also TradFi environments to ultimately optimize liquidity in their own applications. Last but not least, the ONDO chain will catalyze a new ecosystem focused on real-world assets and DeFi. This ecosystem will allow for concentrated innovation to happen both for protocols, but also at the wallet level to really invest and optimize the user experience for financial services and RWAs on-chain. For the first time, it's also going to be possible for real-world assets to have the same utility, liquidity, and performance as traditional assets in other channels. Historically, this has never been possible in other ecosystems. By innovating into the design of the chain itself, for the very first time, RWAs are going to be able to tap into crypto-native primitives such as staking. This will open up the door to new products and innovations and sources of additional yield that can even be passed on to traditional investors. With that, we're incredibly confident that the launch of the ONDO chain will be a pivotal moment in the evolution of on-chain finance and bringing financial services on-chain. For the very first time, developers are going to be able to attack so many different financial primitives, whether that's margin, repo, swaps, staking, robo-advisory, prediction markets, wealth advisory more broadly, but do it across crypto and securities and real-world assets, all on one chain. I'm personally incredibly excited to see what a global group of developers and the types of innovation that they're going to be able to drive to really upgrade our system and innovate in a meaningful way on how financial services are done 24/7 globally. But make no mistake, this will be a long process. Even with the right infrastructure, bringing institutions on-chain, it's going to take time. A lot of you in this room will require different regulatory guidance before you can actually do that. We're aware of it. But I am personally very confident that when you decide to do so, we will have made the infrastructure that makes that process as seamless as possible. And I am very confident in making that statement because the ONDO chain is not developed just by ONDO itself. We're incredibly fortunate to be advised in the design of the ONDO chain by many of the logos on this screen. A special thank you for those of you who have already joined us in our mission and have committed to helping us in the design of the chain to make sure that it meets the requirements of all the institutions in this room.
BlackRock, PayPal, Morgan Stanley, McKinney, you have Wellington Management, Wisdom Tree, Google, Franklin Templeton. You guys know where this is going. So, a lot of people out there, I understand markets are rough right now, guys. Let's be real. If the liquidity, we're in a weird stage of this market. You have Kanye West selling his Twitter account potentially to some scammer that wants to launch a pump and dump token. You have presidents launching pump and dump tokens. You have meme coiners that are just liquidity drain and execution within our markets here, and it's making crypto a very negative atmosphere. Feels like, to be honest, worse than when we were at 15K Bitcoin. I mean, at least that was it feels like it was the snap of a finger with how fast that went by. And now we're just in this constant phase of doubt, uncertainty, fear, and there is no hopium. There is no optimism. There's a lack of trust that exists within the crypto space again. And I do think there is a pivotal moment here where you're going to see regulators and institutions and communities come in, develop, the next wave and onslaught of cryptocurrencies here. And ONDO, guys, quite clearly is at the forefront of this. What this means for the ONDO token? Well, that is a fantastic question. I'm sure a lot of you are watching this. In terms of global markets, we cannot access in the US, so I cannot see the visuals of the application other than what we get to see through YouTube and all of their leaks and video representations on Twitter or X. But what I would like to say is I understand that this is going to happen. There's going to be a day where global markets are accessible to the US. We see this within the committees. We see this with David Sachs. And I do very cautiously optimistically believe this administration is going to bring in the exact regulatory guidance and clarity we need to see companies like ONDO prosper within the United States. ONDO itself is going through major reforms here. The ONDO token, if you type in ONDO token here and type in ONDO finance, it will pop up. If you go to ONDO Foundation's website here, you can see the summary of the token here is for the ONDO DAO and Flux Finance here. So following the decisive vote by the DAO, the restrictions, this was January 18th, guys, enabling free movement of the token as of January 18, 2024. This pivotal decision not only unlocked the token, but also established a structural distribution schedule for the ONDO token aligning with the community consensus. So the investor allegations are starting to be distributed here. And there's a lot of people out there that are trying to FUD, from my perspective, are trying to FUD the value of ONDO and saying that there's no need for this token. What I'd like to highlight here is ONDO core team members are bound to a 5-year lockup here. And even though that we are approaching these levels and we're going to start seeing the distribution, they are being advised by the top institutions within the crypto industry. Not even just the crypto industry, the TradFi industry. This itself, the token itself, was utilized as a governance token for the entire ecosystem. And so I would imagine while these companies can bring on-chain real-world assets and be able to utilize that as their gas fees and all this to bypass the regulations or the regulatory nuances that exist within these TradFi markets, once they're on-chain, once the real assets are on-chain and they want to participate within these DeFi circles, this is where ONDO's Flux Finance and the DAO are going to come to fruition. We're expecting massive utility adoption for the ONDO token, but in a much slower pace here. And that is what I want to remind people here. Is ONDO is building something with the TradFi markets that's going to take years, not months. And we've gone from already what was a multi-$100 million market cap to billions in value here over the course of the last 12 months. I am still anticipating that we're going to see a $5 to $7 price point on ONDO in the future. But this is why I'm very conservative in the price points on the ONDO token itself, because it may be 6 months, it might be 2 years, it might be 4 years before institutions really get the clarity they need to be able to approach this space. Which means as those institutions tokenize, as those real world assets come on chain, this company, ONDO Finance, Ian here, the chief strategy officer, while they have a ton of ideas and products that are already implementing the utility aspect of ONDO token itself, I believe they're going to be navigating this market alongside their partners to see the best case and utility of ONDO's token itself. If it wasn't the case, you wouldn't see World Liberty DeFi and their partners, Donald Trump's organization, buying more and more ONDO. I don't believe you'd see Binance buying more and more ONDO. So the back-end conversations of this, in my opinion, are incredibly bullish for the future of ONDO. And it makes complete sense when they're focusing on real-world assets, guys. So lock in. Now is the time not to be fearful. I know, again, these markets have been all over the place. We had this huge sell-off here right after the Bybit hack. It completely devastated the markets here just 2 days ago, almost hitting 100K, pulling back all the way back down to this breakout zone that we saw. And your altcoins, guys, are following. Now, there's some good signs here. Ethereum getting a little bit of life to it. The Bitcoin dominance start looking to break down potentially again, meaning we might see an influx into your altcoins. But now is not the time to be scared, guys. We are in an unprecedented moment in crypto history. We have the most bullish crypto administration ever. And yes, there's a lot of FUD, there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of uncertainty, there's a lot of doubt out there. But we're seeing true utility and innovation take place in this market today. You want to buy when everybody else is fearful. You want to take profits when everybody else is greedy. And anything in between then, we're sitting here researching with you guys and figure out what the next wave of financial tools is going to be. So that way, as an audience, we can participate within these economies together and hopefully benefit from it in the future. But let me know, guys, are you bullish on ONDO Finance? What are other RWA products that you're watching? Because I know I see them in the comments all the time. You guys tell me look at the Mantra, Plume Network, and all these other projects. Let me know what you're most excited for in the crypto market moving into 2025. Other than that, hit the like button, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video.